Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into No Huddle Rodeo. We are back coming to you from the Fort Worth Stockyards. Thank you to the Virgin Hotel for presenting our content throughout the 2025 National Finals Rodeo. And we are still presented by Virgin Hotels today as we recap Round 10, the world champions, takeaways, observations, all of those types of things from the 2025 National Finals Rodeo. So we will begin in the bareback riding. And in the bareback riding, it's probably our biggest story of the NFR. Rocker Steiner breaks through, wins that world title, joins his grandfather, joins his father. And we really did see at this NFR, I feel like the next evolution of Rocker Steiner, the bareback rider, the human being, the media personality. He was reflective. He was tempered. He had a lot of emotions that went into this world title and went into what happened last year, winning that reserve world title, how he came up short, how that made him feel, how it drove him, how it made him lose himself. All of those types of things were swirling around Rocker Steiner's head. And you can tell, again, this meant a lot to him. He was 90.5 on Disco Party to finish second in round 10 to lock up that world title. And that world title got awfully close because Sam Peterson, right before Rocker got on, jumped Jess Pope in the average. So Sam Peterson had made an additional $18,000. He was going to take home $94,000 for the average title regardless. And that put Rocker in a situation climbing aboard Disco Party in round 10 where he really had to get a check to have a chance to continue his number one ranking that he carried him throughout the NFR to win that world title. And the same song I mentioned him losing himself earlier, Lose Yourself plays before his dad makes his winning run in 2002 in the steer wrestling. Lose Yourself starts playing for Rocker Steiner. And like I said, he goes for 90.5, his first career 90-plus point ride at the National Finals Rodeo. And I think he said it the best because he said, you know, things got really tight in rounds 7, 8, 9, 10. And he said if he would have kept riding the way he was riding in the first couple rounds, he would have wrapped it up by round 6 or 7. But no one dreams of a round 6 world title. They dream about a round 10 world title, winning the gold buckle by going 90. And then afterwards, you saw Rocker Steiner. He didn't jump around the arena. He didn't go crazy. He just stuck his arms out, soaked it all in, started to cry a little bit. He was emotional afterward with his family. It was very emotional seeing him hug his mom, hug his dad, hug his grandpa. It was just a really cool moment and a side of him that we have not seen much of throughout his career. And now we have seen that he's a world champion, over $507,000. He set that earnings record, and boy, did he earn every bit of that money, every bit of that world title. But like I said, Sam Peterson really made this thing close. He ended up second in the average, second in the world. He was 854 on 10 in his first career NFR, finished the year with $448,000. He showed a lot in the bareback riding. Cade Sunier in his second NFR, first one since 2023. He was terrific as well. One round 10, one round 6, made nearly $200,000. He finished number 4. Of course, Jess Pope, always a machine in the bareback riding at the National Finals Rodeo. He gave Rocker a scare. He was the projected world champion after round 8, just didn't have enough gas, didn't have enough money that he could possibly win down the stretch to finish number 3. And then something else I found interesting too. This courtesy of Pro Bull Stats. Dean Thompson, only bareback rider marked above every horse he had. So kind of seemed like the reigning world champion was a bit of a non-factor in this National Finals Rodeo. Not really the case. He finishes number 10 in the world, but he rode really, really well over the course of all 10 nights at the finals. In the steer wrestling, Tucker Allen had maybe the most dominant bulldogging performance in the National Finals Rodeo we have seen for probably the last decade plus, at least the last 5 years. He ends up coming in number 5, wins the world by over $65,000, won the average by 10.4 seconds. That is more than the previous 4 years combined. The difference was 1/10 of a second in 2024. So obviously big difference there. 1.3 in 2022, 2 seconds in 2022, and then 5.1 seconds in 2021. Again, Tucker Allen, 10.4 seconds better than anyone else in the field in the steer wrestling. That is ultimately what powers him to that world title. And like I said, he won 3 go-rounds. He was 5'9" or better on every run, averaged about 4.4 seconds per run. Got it done on that last run. He said he knew that all he had to do was catch, and he would win the world title. Had a slight bobble. The crowd kind of oohed and awed. He said that he didn't feel the bobble the same way the rest of the crowd did, but regardless, gets that steer to the ground. And as he said afterward, he had never been under that much pressure in his entire life, in his rodeo career. And to be able to back it up the way he did, very, very impressive. And he ran down the likes of Jesse Brown, Justin Schaefer, Rowdy Parrott, Will Loomis, while doing that, while winning that world title. And Will Loomis ends up for the 4th time in 5 years, the reserve world champion. He entered number 1. He went out of the average early, which made things tough for him, but he did bulldog really well after he went out of the average. All 7 of his qualified times for Will Loomis, 4.6 seconds or faster. 5 of the 7, 4 flat or faster. 3.8 and 3.9 in rounds 9 and 10. So did everything he could do, but ultimately Tucker Allen just too far ahead in the average, just too good on the previous 9 nights. He put everyone else in a really impossible situation, made himself really, really tough to catch in the process. And before I get off it, Tucker Allen, by the way, $398,913. That is a new PRCA steer wrestling record. Other noteworthy finishes in the bulldog, Jesse Brown comes in second. He finishes third, his 5th straight top 6 finish. Best year of his career, $324,000. Then Rowdy Parrott, who was in that gold buckle race last year, got in it late this year. Kind of the same deal as last year. He snuck up in there. He had a chance to win it if some things broke his way, but he ends up number 4 in the world, a 2nd straight top 5 finish for him, and he was 2nd in the average. So a lot of the guys that we expected to do well in the bulldogging did do well, but a guy that I didn't necessarily write off, but didn't talk as much about in the previews, in Tucker Allen, he was sensational. Again, just as good of a display in the bulldogging, in the National Finals Rodeo as you will ever see. Won more money, $240,000, than any bulldogger ever at the NFR. So I guess I've been kind of dancing around it, but you probably could. If you win more than $240,000, you win the average, you win multiple go-rounds, you win the world title coming from number 5 in the world. It is hard not to say that Tucker Allen had possibly the best NFR, the most dominant NFR ever for a world champion, at least in recent memory. In the team roping, another unlikely world pair of world champions, guys who came outside the top 5, and Andrew Ward and Jake Long. They didn't even know it when they won it. It was really interesting talking to them afterward, because the scenario coming in was if Colton Schmidt and Jonathan Torres catch, they would win the world title. They were far enough ahead in the world standings, far enough ahead in the average, but early on in the round, they miss, and it just made you sick. The whole room stopped. For Torres, he could have gone from number 15 to number 1. They roped so well for the entire NFR, that pair did. It just, when it matters the most, they couldn't get it done, but they had 8 qualified times of 4.7 seconds or faster. All 8 of their qualified times were 4.7 or faster. Again, for a pair in Colton Schmidt and Jonathan Torres that had not roped together prior to the finals, but the round 10 pressure, all they had to do was catch. They couldn't get it done. So what that did is open the door for Ward and Long, Driggers and Nogueira, Summers and Corkill. And so Ward and Long, in all of this, in this mess of a team roping round 10, of the next 3 pairs who could win the world title, they are the first to go of those pairs. And so they're 3.9. They didn't have time to game plan or anything. So they just go out, they make a good run. They are 3.9 seconds. So they end up winning the average by 5.7 seconds. Summers and Corkill are 4.2. Driggers and Nogueira are 3.9. So they win the average by 5 seconds. They are taking the average victory lap. And Andrew Ward and Jake Long still have no idea they have won the world. And Andrew Ward told a great story of, he looked up and his dad up there in the stands is giving him a thumbs up. And he didn't know what the thumbs up was for. He thought maybe it was for the average, but he kind of realized in real time afterward, talking to the media, that like, hey, I think my dad was telling me we had won the world titles. So they take the average victory lap. They go talk to Caleb Driggers and Junior Nogueira, who they beat out by about $5,000. And they're going, hey, do you guys know what happened? No one knows what happens. And finally, someone grabs Andrew Ward and Jake Long and kind of tells them, hey, come with me. You're the world champions. And so they never really had any time to let it sink in. And then they're kind of talking to the media afterward. And you could see it kind of sink in real time. Jake Long, super emotional. He's kind of more taking that part of it. He's crying a little bit. He's tearing up. He said afterwards, once it was confirmed, he started bawling, walking downstairs. And then Andrew Ward, on the other hand, is just sitting there and he is kind of smiling, just cheesing the whole time. And he's like, I cannot believe this happened. I cannot believe I'm a world champion. So two awesome guys get it done there. They get it done in their first year as partners. They come from outside the top five, like I said. And for Jake Long, back-to-back reserve world titles in 23 and 24 with Clint Summers, teams up with Andrew Ward. And after 15 NFRs at age 41, he breaks through and wins his first career gold buckle. Meanwhile, Andrew Ward is also an awesome story. He's 35 years old. He didn't make his first NFR until he was 29. He has made 6 straight. He won the average in 2021. Now he has an average title and a world title. So again, you're Jake Long, a guy who took 15 cracks at it to finally win that gold buckle. Then Andrew Ward, a guy who doesn't really make it until his 30s. And now at age 35, has 2 average titles and has 2 world titles. Ward ends with $373,838. Long ends with about $372,000 in what is becoming a theme in pro rodeo. Both of those are earnings records. And again, very well deserved. Roped really well down the stretch. Driggers and Nogueira did a good job as well. They finished 3-9, 3-8, 3-9. So the team who entered number 1, who has 2 gold buckles, almost stepped him there and stole it. But in the end, that average, it loomed large in the steer wrestling. It loomed large in the team roping. We'll see it in our next event, the saddle bronc riding. That $94,000 payday is a complete game changer at the National Finals Rodeo. And before we get out of here, in the team roping, I mentioned it already, but you have to give Colton Schmidt and Jonathan Torres a lot of credit. Schmidt entered 14, Torres entered 15. They both finished in the top 5, but again, they were both without their regular partners. They had never roped together. They go to the finals. They win 3 rounds. They almost win the average. They come oh so close to winning the world title. Just don't quite get it done, but they were a lot of fun to watch. They were an awesome story. Same is true for Lightning Aguilera and Kane Profili. Aguilera, 15 on the head side. Profili, 14 on the heel side. They win 3 rounds and end up number 6 in the world. Aguilera does, while Profili, on the other hand, ends up number 5 in the world. So really interesting stories. Guys who have never roped together claim 50, 60% of the rounds. And in the end, it is a first-time pair roping together, Andrew Ward and Jake Long. And emotional and ecstatic and exuberant, just everything went into that world title. And I gained a lot of respect for both of those guys, how appreciative they were to win those gold buckles. It was really cool to see. Saddle bronc riding now. $346. That is how much Statler Wright edged out his brother, reigning world champion Ryder Wright by. And Statler Wright, we'll talk a little bit about the Stetson thing, what could have been in the Triple Crown department. Regardless, it stays in the Wright family. And we knew coming in it was going to be either Statler or Ryder. We had no idea it was going to be this close. Stetson ends up tying Ryder at number 1. Statler ends up splitting 6th. And that is how we get to the point where Statler wins by $346. If Statler is a quarter point lower, it is Ryder's world title. If Ryder is a quarter point higher, it is also Ryder's world title. Instead, the scores were marked what they were, and it ends up being, like I said, Statler Wright by about $300. Because Ryder's 89 3/4 in round 10, Statler's 87.5. Again, if either of them are marked a quarter point, if Statler's marked a quarter point worse and Ryder is marked a quarter point better, Ryder would have been your world champion. And Statler summed it up really well. That is placing at a $5,000 added money rodeo sometime in August. So the next time someone scratches out a 7th place finish somewhere that seemingly doesn't matter, just know it absolutely does matter. And so we went over what happened in round 10, but just some eye-popping stuff from Statler Wright. 864 and a quarter on 10. 9 rides of 85.5 points or better. 8 rides of 86 3/4 or better. 7 rides of 87 points or better. Checks in 8 rounds. And he was number 8 coming in. And he raised a $112,000 deficit on his brother Ryder Wright. So not only, he was number 9 coming in. So not only does he jump 8 guys total, but he makes up $112,000 on Ryder. He makes up $100,000 on Damian Brennan, $90,000 on Dawson Hayes, $65,000 on Zeke Thurston. He runs down all of these great bronc riders. Wins $274,000 at the National Finals Rodeo. And in the end, with just over $455,000, just barely better than his brother Ryder. And so Statler, again, fully deserved it with how good he was at the National Finals Rodeo. But this could have gone a bunch of different ways in the bronc riding. Obviously, we have the Stetson Wright markout controversy. Everyone has talked about replay and what it is and what it isn't. And I think the hard thing with replay at the NFR, as we found out, is they really only have 10 to 15 seconds to look at it. So that might be the thing that they look at, because we are capable of making good, productive changes at the NFR. The quarter point system, I thought, worked really, really well this year. We saw the bareback riding average be decided by a quarter point, Sam Peterson at number 1 over Jess Pope at number 2, which is exactly what it was designed for. So we saw that work really well. And so maybe we will see some tweaks in the replay, because obviously Stetson Wright, as it has been shown from pretty much every angle, the consensus was he marked that horse out. And if he would have marked that horse out and been given a score, let's say the score was 85, Stetson would have won the world title by about $25,000. And he would have won the average as well. And he would have won a Triple Crown. And so to me, it'll be really, really interesting to see how this season is remembered for Stetson Wright. Will it be remembered almost like he did win the Triple Crown, where it's not in the record book, but everyone who was there goes, hey, if you were living this in the moment, you know that Stetson may have been costed a world title in the bronc riding by the officials. Everyone who was there when they passed this story on down will probably tell it that way and remember it that way. So it doesn't go in the record books, but I do think in the end, like Stetson said afterward, it kind of fired him up. He went on to win the bull riding that night. And so in the end, if he does get a Triple Crown, this will probably not be remembered as a good thing, but this will be a really fascinating part of the Stetson Wright story, and the grace and the fire and the vigor that he took it with will be remembered instrumentally when you tell the story of Stetson Wright's rodeo career, which Stetson we will get to more in a little bit. He's already got 10 world titles. He added 2 more, just didn't get the 3rd in the Triple Crown. But what a consolation prize to have his brothers finish 1-2 and to have his brother Statler win his first, Ryder finish 2, Stetson finish 3. Another thing that changed the shape of this race, Zeke Thurston was the projected world champion after round 8. He had won 4 world titles and 3 average titles. It looked very likely that he could win 5 world titles and 4 average titles this year, but for the first time in 55 horses in round 9, Zeke Thurston bucked off, and that completely changed this race. That is what opened the door for Statler, for Ryder, and then Stetson to get up there and finish number 3. Tie down roping, quite honestly, not nearly as exciting, because Riley Webb just continues to dominate this event. He has won it 3 times in a row. He joins Roy Cooper, which got talked about a lot in round 10 or coming into round 10. I would like to point out that on US Cowboy, we did a video about that on August 26th. It was published. We were already talking about here on US Cowboy. I'm going to give ourselves a pat on the back. If Riley Webb could become the first tie-down roper since Roy Cooper to win 3 straight gold buckles. And sure enough, he does just that. Joe Beaver never did it. Fred Whitfield, Trevor Brazile, Tuff Cooper, Caleb Smith, Cody Ole. You name any dominant tie-down roper since Roy Cooper, and there has been no one who has won 3 straight gold buckles. Riley wins the average this year as well. 82.3 seconds on 10. That is now 2 straight average titles, 2 straight world titles, 3 world titles for his career, 2 average titles for his career. He is 22 years old. Over the last 3 years, he is averaging 8.1 seconds at the National Finals Rodeo. He won the average. He won the world. Down the stretch, 7-7, 7-5, 8-5, 7-8. He finished with over $555,000. He broke his own earnings record, which was $479,000, by over $75,000. Previously, he had broken in 2024 his own earnings records of $452,000. So at the beginning of the 2023 season, no tie-down roper ever had even cleared $450,000. Then Riley Webb did it. Then in 2024, he hit $479,000. Then in 2025, when no tie-down roper had ever cleared $500,000, Riley Webb won $555,000 in the tie-down roping. And he won about $250,000 at the NFR. And he won the world by over $160,000. And so what does that tell you? When you are one of these guys, Shad Mayfield, Kincaid Henry, Ty Harris, Joel Harris, Haven Medjid, John Douch, Dylan Hancock, you name any of these elite ropers who are good enough to win a world title, who are going to have to go through Riley Webb to do it. And if you look at what Riley Webb does, he averages now for his career $200,000, $225,000 at the NFR. So you are going to have to look at Riley, who's probably going to be number 1 or 2 in the world entering the NFR again. And you'll have to add $200,000 to his total. And you'll go, that's what I need to have a chance. Because that's what Shad Mayfield saw. But then Shad Mayfield's calf gets up in round 5 after he had such a hot start. After he was 7-5 or better on 4 straight runs to start the NFR. Shad's calf gets up, which is usually not a huge deal. But he knows all of a sudden he's behind the 8 ball on a guy like Riley Webb, who's not going to beat himself, who has never beat himself in the Thomas and Mack. And so he's going, I got to rope way different now just to catch Riley. And that is now the pressure that looms that Riley Webb puts on people. This is a lofty comparison, but it is a little bit Tiger Woods-esque. When on a Sunday in 2007, you knew in order to beat Tiger Woods, you had to not only catch him because he had the lead, but you had to have your A++ game and hope he had his B- game. Because Tiger's B game is probably your A game. And his A game is better than anything you can do for 10 nights at the NFR. And that is what Riley Webb is now. If you are trailing him entering the NFR, if you are trailing him with 4 rounds left in the NFR, you have to assume that he's going to be 7-7 on his last 4 runs. And you now have to beat that, not just one night, for 4 straight nights. And you don't only have to beat that physically, you have to beat that mentally. You have to watch yourself be 7-4 and him be 7-6 and realize you made up no ground with your fastest run of the NFR when he made what is for him an average run at the NFR and was almost as good as you. And so we saw that with Shad Mayfield this year. And we saw that with Shad Mayfield last year, quite frankly. But the credit to Shad Mayfield People have said a lot about him at the NFR. He had a great NFR this year. The credit to Shad Mayfield is the fact that he is the only one midway through these NFRs who's even got a chance. And so say what you want about Shad Mayfield down the stretch at the National Finals Rodeo, but the last 2 years, he has been the only one who has even had a remote shot at Riley Webb in rounds 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then in rounds 9 and 10, Riley's got it wrapped up. And like Riley said afterward, he said, I'm only 22. I've already got 3. So he's thinking about how many can he win. And I'm thinking the same thing about Riley Webb right now. Some guys who could potentially knock him off that post this year, who really did well with the NFR. Kincaid Henry, 4 times a 7-3 or faster. Won a couple go-rounds. He was sensational. And when he hits that barrier, he said it best himself after one of his round wins. If it's a breakaway contest, he can win that every night. And so he knows now at the Thomas and Mack with this start, 2 swings, I can get it on him. I can be fast here. Ty Harris, 6-8 to win round 10, 7-1 in round 9. He found a little something in the Thomas and Mack after some recent struggles in recent years. And then Joel Harris wins 2 rounds. He's been to the NFR twice, won 2 go-rounds both years. Joel Harris finishes number 4. Kincaid Henry finishes number 3. He entered number 3, won over $150,000 at the National Finals Rodeo. Joel Harris entered number 10. He finished number 4, and he won 160-some thousand, 170-some thousand, close to 200,000 as I'm doing the math here in real time. So 2 really, really terrific NFRs for Joel Harris. He won $150,000 at his NFR debut last year and moved up from outside the top 10 into that 7th position. Again, number 4 now. So number 7 and number 4 the last 2 years for Joel Harris. So look out for Kincaid Henry. Look out for Ty Harris. Look out for Joel Harris. Keep looking out for Shad Mayfield because Shad put a lot of pressure on Riley the way he roped him those first 4 rounds. Because of how Shad roped in those first 4 rounds, he raced a $50,000 deficit. So really impressive there from Shad Mayfield. Barrel racing, no Jarvis, no problem for Kassie Mowry. She blitzed everyone early. She won round 1. She put herself in a position where she could afford to hit a barrel in round 10, which is what happened. She hits a barrel. It's no problem. She ends up winning this thing by about $17,000 over Trisha Aldridge and the first timers at the NFR because Kassie Mowry wins 2 go-arounds, wins 1 on Cornbread and 1 on Will. Again, really backs up that this 2024 world title was not all Jarvis and also backs up the strategy that, hey, Kassie Mowry can go to 30 rodeos. She can win at all 30 of those rodeos. She can show up to the NFR, win 200,000 plus at the NFR, win a world title. So she has got this down to a science now the last 2 years. But the first timers, Trisha Aldridge, 3rd in the average, 2nd in 2 go-rounds, 1st in 2 more go-rounds. Her and Adios were the talk of the town, whether it was her hat, whether it was how fast Adios is, how much Adios is worth, how much they've won on Adios, whether it's Tank and his sparkling jackets in the alleyway with her. She kind of stole everyone's hearts for the NFR. Same thing with Julie Port, only gets 2 checks, but ends up winning the average after Kassie Mowry hits a barrel. There's Haley Gibson Stillwell. She won checks in the last 5 rounds, finished 4th in the world. And then Carly Otero, 13-28 and 13-2 on her last 2 runs. She ends up with a really terrific and erratic but terrific showing in the barrel racing. But now as it stands, Kassie Mowry's got back-to-back world titles, and she could be barreling toward 3, 4, 5 of these in her career. In the bull riding, we finish it off. Stetson Wright wins the bull riding once again, back to his mountaintop where he was in 2022. We didn't see him at the NFR in 2023 and 2024. Again, he gets it done in the bull riding, $546,000. He rides 5 bulls. He wins 3 go-rounds. He came in with $350,000. It was him versus Wacy Shawa versus Kai Hamilton. Kai ends up riding one more bull than Stetson, but Stetson really dominates the day money. Wasey ends up riding his first two and kind of falls off, and Stetson just proves that at the NFR, he is a different beast. He won those first two rounds. He took control of the race. He only rode 3 for 8 after that, but he did win a go-around after that. And again, he came and he showed up right away and proved that he was in control of this thing. So he ends up over 60% for the season, close to 87 points per ride for the season. And he said afterward, because he won the Bulls, he won the all-around, he wants the Triple Crown, 10 world titles for Stetson Wright. And he said it himself, that I am greedy, I am not satisfied, I want as many of these as I can possibly win. I'm already looking forward to 2026. The NFR just fires me up, and you could feel that. Now, last year he was walking up to places. He's going to be in all the big rodeos in the bull riding. He's going to have every opportunity to make a boatload of money. We'll see what happens with his health, but he held up for the entire NFR, and I would not be surprised if Stetson Wright makes 400-some thousand going into the National Finals Rodeo this year. And we mentioned it was going to be a duel between him and Kai Hamilton, but at $513,000, about $33,000 back, it is TJ Gray who ends up second because he is the Top Gun Award winner with about $275,000. He covered 7 bulls, including his last 5. He won 3 go-rounds in those 5 rounds. Rose all the way, like I said, to number 2 in those world standings and pretty dang close to Stetson Wright. Like when we saw that Stetson got bucked off in round 10 and TJ rode and won the round to get to 7 of 10 and win the average, way, way closer than you would imagine. So tip of the cap to TJ Gray, who entered number 1 a year ago, didn't have the NFR he wanted. He has now proven that he can be great during the regular season, that he can be great during the NFR. Now, if he takes what he did in 2024 and 2025 and smacks them together, he will be a world title contender with Kai Hamilton, with Wasey Shala, with Tristan Hutchings. It ends, by the way, Stetson 546,471, TJ Gray 513,809, Kai at $500,000, pretty much on the number. Wasey at $413,000, only about $60,000 for Wasey at the NFR. And so we mentioned Kai, second in the average, 6 of 10 bulls. That's now 3 NFRs for Kai Hamilton, where he has covered 6 bulls on the number. Luke Mackey also rode 6 in his first NFR. Look out for him. He entered number 15, but his riding percentage was up there near the top 10 at about 48% coming in. He really proved a lot that he could do it at the NFR. Bryce Jensen, a rookie. All the rookie headlines were about Hudson Bolton. They were about Quinn Anderson. Both those guys, very good, by the way, both rode 5 bulls, but it's Bryce Jensen who ends up as the Resist All Rookie of the Year because he rides 6. Like I said, as does Luke Mackey. I mentioned Hudson Bolton and Quinn Anderson. They both ride 5, and this year, we had 7 bull riders cover at least 5. That is compared to 3 in 2024. We had 10 bull riders this year cover at least 4. That is compared to 5 in 2024. We rode a total of 60 bulls this year. That is compared to 46 in the last 2 years. So exactly how you draw it up for the bull riding at the National Finals Rodeo. 6 bulls per round. We pay out the spots. Boom. Perfect. Exactly what you want. So I think I did a good job covering everything there. Those are kind of my broad thoughts. Everything NFR, all the things that interested me, some shout outs that I don't think we got to, but congratulations one more time to Rocker Steiner, to Tucker Allen, to Andrew Ward, to Jake Long, to Statler Wright, to Riley Webb, Kassie Mowry, Stetson Wright, and Stetson Wright again in the all-around. He finishes with $817,000. Those are your 2025 world champions. And because this is pro rodeo, we've got about 2 weeks off, and then we start playoff series rodeo again in Odessa in January. Then we go to Denver, then we go to Fort Worth, and then we kick off this whole extravaganza again. So we will be here for you No Huddle Rodeo once a week until the summer, twice a week during the summer run. We hope throughout this first year of US Cowboy here on YouTube that we have earned your trust, earned your business as a reputable place to get all the best information, the best stats, the best knowledge in pro rodeo. A reminder, we do the same for the PBR, and we will continue to do the same throughout the 2026 season. So if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed any of our videos, like, subscribe, tell a friend, spread the word. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you doing so through the National Finals Rodeo. And again, we will be here throughout 2026 to break it all down for you here on No Huddle Rodeo. Until then, thank you one more time to Virgin Hotels. Thank you to Justin Boots. Thank you to Runyon's Fine Furniture. We will see you in a few weeks for the beginning of the 2026. This has been your recap of the 2025 National Finals Rodeo. Thanks for joining us.